El Camino the Breaking Bad movie gives us one last chance to see how awful humans can be to each other. After 5 years of long wait, we finally get to find out what happens to Jessie Pinkman at the end of Breaking Bad. Now, the last time we saw him, he had been released from his imprisonment in a concrete cage where he was forced to make drugs. And yes, if you haven't seen the show, this is all totally normal. And he's driving off in an El Camino. The show then follows the actual main character, Walter White, and what happens to him, killing all the drug dealers, blah, blah, blah. So this movie, El Camino, picks up with Jesse. He's escaping, crying, and he ends up finding the only two people he knows he can trust, Skinny Pete and Badger. Now, Skinny Pete and Badger must be really tired because they did a lot of stuff for Walter White the night before. But they end up at his house. They help him out. He escapes, and he's on his way. From there, it's a descent into the worst that humans can get. And it's really sort of reliving a lot of the more downer parts of the show, of the Breaking Bad. So what do we have? It's basically Jesse's story of how he is able to escape and start a new life. But before he can do that, he's got to do some horrible things. So the show begins with a shot of Mike and Jesse in the desert, and Jesse asks Mike, "Oh, if you were me, if you had all this money and you could go anywhere, where would you go?" And Mike tells him, "Oh, I go Alaska. It's the final frontier. You can be whoever you want, do whatever you want, start a new life there." And then we go into the present, and that's what stuck with Jesse. But in order to do so, Jesse needs money. Lots of money. So while he was imprisoned, the low-rent Matt Damon-looking guy, I think his name was Tom. Look, guys, it's been 5 years. I can't remember everybody's names. Tom had brought Jesse out to help him dispose of a body. He apparently killed his house cleaner for finding a bunch of money. And Jesse knows that Tom's got cash in his place. So Jesse breaks in, tries to find the money, is kind of sort of taken prisoner by fake cops, makes a deal with the fake cops to split the money, and then things devolve from there. So is El Camino good or bad for the Breaking Bad community? It's kind of a mixed bag, to be perfectly honest. It's a great nostalgic trip for a show that ended about 5 years ago, a show that everybody loved, still loves to this day, but it doesn't have the highs. Jesse Pinkman was a great character, but he was only a great character when he was with Walter White. The whole time, Jesse was supposed to be in Mexico making drugs and, sort of making his own drugs. Those shows weren't all that interesting. And yeah, it's kind of sad to see the corruption of misguided youth in the original series, but we don't have that anymore. Now, fans of this movie, you just want a little taste of what you had before, but it's kind of not there. We have the terribleness people can have with each other, but we really don't have the interplay of the characters. Walter White does show up, but it's not until about 3/4 of the way through the movie. Now, this is a 2-hour movie. You start off with Skinny Pete and Badger, and that's great. That sort of gives you the feeling of how things were. But then it's just sort of the messiness for about the next hour. Now, near the end, you have Jesse interacting with a lot of old characters. You have Walter White, as I mentioned, showing up. You have him talking to Mike, who was the sort of hitman, cleaner type guy. you have some of the other characters. You have his girlfriend, whose name I also forget. You have Jesse's parents show up very quickly. He sort of hurts them one more time by tricking them out of the house so he can go in and steal some guns. And it's a little bit of a downer, if we're being perfectly honest. Now, it ends up that Jesse hangs out. Well, I shouldn't say hangs out. He ends up meeting the vacuum cleaner salesman who helped Walter try to escape from the original series. Now, Jesse was also supposed to get out of town, but he skipped out on it. And so when he goes now, the price is $125,000 to disappear, to get a new life, all the records and whatnot. Well, Jesse has to pay for the original extrication as well. So that means he's got to get more money. He's got to go find those cops the fake cops who stole the money. Now, Jesse had recognized one of the guys as someone who built part of the, I guess you'd say, track system where Jesse was chained up to, where he was forced to make the drugs. And so he remembers the guy's company. He goes out there, and then a shootout ensues. So between the flashbacks of Jesse being forced to move bodies and the new murders, it all seems very gratuitous. It's not like in the original where we see the slow descent from what makes someone, I guess you'd say, a moral person or a normal person living in society and what allows them to do horrible, horrible things. This is just people who are already pretty bad doing horrible things. There's never really a redemption from Jesse. He seems sad. He's still sad about his girlfriend being murdered, and he's sad about the little boy. He doesn't know where the kid is or anything. But we never really see Jesse turn the corner, you know? He doesn't say, I'm never going to do violence again. I'm going to take all this money and I'm going to go build a new life and be a good person. So in the end, it sort of leaves you feeling a little bit empty. I mean, you feel happy for Jesse. This is sort of the happy ending for Breaking Bad. You don't have Walter ultimately dying of cancer, even though he revenge murders all those drug dealers. But it just ends up with Jesse in a small truck driving up to Alaska, and that's about it. So at the end of the day, Breaking Bad, the movie. Is it something for fans? I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. I think if you were a big fan of the Breaking Bad show, it's something to definitely hit you in the feels that, we get to see Jesse, a guy we liked. We get to see him doing all right. But it's definitely not as powerful, not as meaningful as the original show was. And we don't have Walter White in it. I mean, we have that one scene with him talking with Jesse about going to college and becoming a businessman, how to do sales and marketing. But of course, Jesse's not interested. But because we don't have Walter, because we don't have the family dynamic with Walter, alternately wanting to do something impressive, do something amazing with his life, and wanting to take care of his family, it's just a little empty. And no, Saul does not show up, which is kind of weird because isn't Bob Odenkirk still making the Better Call Saul show? I mean, I haven't watched it, but you'd think they could get him in there for like 2-3 minute conversation with Jesse. So it was a little strange. But Breaking Bad, If you liked it, go watch El Camino. If you never saw Breaking Bad, probably not a good movie for you. So thanks everyone for coming in. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment. What did you think about El Camino? And click the subscribe button. I'll see you guys soon.